So the same people that Puffy was leaving Wolf for, and the same people that Puffy told Wolf he was leaving him for, is the same people that ended up killing Wolf. That's wild, man.
Well, you know, he told Wolf he didn't need Wolf no more.
Was alive the way he loved his mother, we would be talking about Diddy today. Was always saying that Justin looked just like Anthony Wolf Jones. Meech, go ahead and do what you gotta do. When him and Wolf was beefing outside, I heard Wolf say out his mouth, I'ma show you. I knew more than they would put down in that documentary.
On December 3rd, 2025, Netflix dropped a brand new documentary, the kind that instantly took over every timeline. The internet blew up with hot takes, arguments, and endless debates. But as people watched, one strange detail had everyone doing a double take. A major name was missing. Anthony Wolf Jones, gone, not even mentioned once. That silence hit hard because anyone who knows the history of Bad Boy Records understands Wolf wasn't just another face in the background. He wasn't some random guy tagging along for the fame. Wolf was Diddy's right-hand man, his protector, his brother in everything but blood. Whenever things got real, Wolf was the one standing right beside him, calm, loyal, and ready to handle whatever came next.
Wolf was a boss. You understand? Wolf just wasn't no security type dude. Wolf had admirations to do things bigger. And
so how did Netflix tell a story about power, danger, and fame, yet skip over him completely? That's the question that set the internet on fire. Because Wolf Jones wasn't just a rumor in the streets. His story ended in a public shootout, loud and deadly, right in Detroit. No mentions, no details, no closure. Like he'd been erased on purpose. But his story can't stay buried, because once you start tracing the truth behind Wolf's name, you realize it's tied to one of hip-hop's most shocking nights. A night filled with betrayal, violence, and loyalty that turned fatal. So let's rewind the clock. Back to November 2003 in Atlanta, Georgia. The flashy, money-soaked city where the music scene and the streets were constantly colliding. That night, the spotlight was on Buckhead, Atlanta's wildest playground, a neighborhood full of clubs, flashy cars, and celebrities trying to outshine each other. But by sunrise, the streets were covered in blood. Anthony Wolf Jones, just 38 years old, was there with his close friend Lamont Riz Gertie, two men stepping into a situation they didn't even see coming. Wolf wasn't some hired muscle that night. He was family, a protector who'd spent years shielding Diddy from street chaos and industry heat. But even a man that sharp couldn't predict how fast everything was about to spiral.
He was in a shootout with a couple of guys from BMF, and allegedly the guy he put down with BMF is the one got close enough.
Inside club chaos, tension was already brewing. The drama kicked off over a woman named China, Wolf's ex, who was reportedly hanging around Demetrius Big Meech Flannery, the boss of the Black Mafia family, BMF.
Wolf said something to her, and she came and knocked his hat off his head, and he snatched her up, and then Meech intervened, and then security came and put Wolf.
When Wolf saw her with Meech, he snapped. Witnesses say he confronted her right there in public, bold, emotional, and furious. Some say he even slapped her in front of Meech himself, a move that instantly turned the room ice cold. Security rushed in, dragging Wolf and Riz out of the club before it got worse. But outside, things didn't cool down. They exploded. Moments later, Big Meech and another BMF member nicknamed Bull stepped outside too. Heated words flew, tempers snapped, and then gunfire. Shots tore through the night.
And Wolf and Rizzo are, I guess, sitting on Big Meech's car.
Yeah, well, leaning against his car.
Leaning against his car.
Yeah.
As a show of disrespect.
Yeah, oh yeah, like they're waiting on you.
Echoing through the Buckhead streets. When it was over, Wolf and Riz were gone, lying in the parking lot. Big Meech himself got grazed, 2 bullets to the backside, but survived. Police said Wolf and Riz pulled their guns first, but no one really knows how fast it all went down. What's certain is this: that shootout shook Atlanta and the entire hip-hop world to its core. Wolf's death didn't just end a life, it created a silence that still hangs heavy over the culture today. And that's exactly why Netflix's decision to skip his name felt so wrong. How could they tell Diddy's story without mentioning the man who took bullets, kept secrets, and stood in the fire beside him? It's like cutting out a chapter that defines the whole book. So now, we're telling the story Netflix refused to touch. The real story of Wolf Jones, the man behind Diddy's shadow, and the mystery that still refuses to die. The night Wolf Jones fell, Atlanta didn't sleep. Sirens screamed through Buckhead while crowds scattered, and within minutes the entire city knew something massive had gone down. A high-profile shooting tied to Bad Boy Records and the Black Mafia family. That was front-page material before sunrise. When police arrived, the scene looked like a war zone. Shell casings glittered under flashing lights, glass crunched beneath every step, and two lifeless bodies, Wolf and his friend Riz Gertie, lay near a row of luxury cars.
First and started firing.
Right. And he took a shot.
Witnesses said the men had been leaning against Big Meech's ride when the shouting started, a move some called a show of disrespect. Seconds later, bullets were flying. Meech himself didn't walk away clean. He caught two grazing shots in the backside, proof of just how close the gunfire came. But what came next stunned everyone. Police charged Big Meech with double murder. The hip-hop community went into meltdown. Headlines screamed that one of the most connected men in America's street culture was now facing life behind bars. But Meech wasn't alone. He had one of the slickest lawyers in the country, Drew Findling, the same man known for pulling off impossible wins in high-stakes cases. And somehow, against every odd, Meech walked free. The courtroom buzzed with disbelief. Reporters whispered that the evidence was thin, the witnesses shaky, the timeline messy. Still, two men were dead, and 1,000 questions hung in the air. For Diddy, Wolf's death was more than a loss. It was a wound to the foundation of his empire. Wolf had been more than muscle. He was the strategist, the silent protector, the man who made sure business moved smoothly between the suits and the streets. Without him, the balance inside Bad Boy shifted overnight. People inside the circle said the atmosphere turned cold, quiet, and paranoid.
Wolf was a boss. You understand? Wolf just wasn't no security type dude. Wolf had admirations to do things bigger
And here's the part Netflix didn't touch. This wasn't some small-time tragedy. It was a defining moment in hip-hop history. Wolf's death broke an invisible thread that had held together Diddy's world for years. Insiders whispered that certain secrets might have died with him. Secrets about connections between record labels and powerful street organizations. Deals that mixed money, loyalty, and danger all at once. Online, fans demanded answers. Why would a global platform skip a chapter this explosive? Some said Netflix wanted to keep things clean, to protect reputations and billion-dollar partnerships. Others believed the silence was calculated, an attempt to bury the darker truth about how close the entertainment world once danced with the underworld. Whatever the reason, the omission hit hard. Wolf's murder wasn't just another headline, it was a turning point.
So I think they had a chance to buy it, and Wolf wanted his money. And they was cool, but Wolf wanted to do other things. I think Wolf probably owned 15% of that club with Alex. That's what he had said. It was Visions or something like that. He had owned 15% of that. And
the man who had walked beside Diddy through countless storms was suddenly gone, taken out in one flash of gunfire outside a club that symbolized everything flashy and dangerous about early 2000s Atlanta. And still, no footage, no cameras, no documentary chapter to preserve the chaos or the heartbreak. Just the echoes of shots in the night and the whispers that followed. Wolf Jones had been erased from the official story, but not from the memories of those who lived it. His friends, his family, and the people who'd seen him stand unshaken beside one of hip-hop's biggest moguls, they never forgot. Because deep down, everyone understood what his death represented. In a world built on image and power, loyalty can vanish in a heartbeat, and silence often hides the loudest truths. Before the bright lights, before Bad Boy Records, before Atlanta, there was the Bronx, the concrete jungle that raised Anthony Wolf Jones and taught him everything about survival. He wasn't born into luxury, he was born into grit. On February 20th, 1965, in one of New York's roughest neighborhoods, Wolf came into a world that handed out no favors. You either learned fast or you didn't make it at all. His mother, Barbara Jones, did everything she could to keep her sons grounded. She worked as a teacher, stretched every dollar, and tried to build a little safety in a world that had none. She pushed her boys into private school, even homeschooled them on Saturdays, hoping education would be their escape from the block. But in the Bronx, the streets always whisper your name back. No matter how hard Barbara tried, the pull of the block was too strong. The valley, their neighborhood, was infamous. A mix of hustlers, dreamers, and danger. Respect wasn't given, it was earned. Wolf learned that lesson early. People around him said he had that mix. Brain sharp enough to read a room and courage strong enough to handle whatever came out of it. By his teens, he was already moving with a crew known as the Valley Mob, a group everyone in the Bronx knew not to mess with. They weren't loud, but they were efficient, handling business with precision. Wolf's name started to spread. The calm one, the thinker, the guy who handled pressure like it was nothing. That combination of intelligence and loyalty made him stand out. Even with all that heat around him, Wolf tried walking a straight path for a while. After graduating from Harry S. Truman High School in 1983, he signed up for Bronx Community College, took jobs with the Postal Service and in construction, regular gigs trying to do it the right way. But deep down, the 9-to-5 grind couldn't match the ambition burning inside him. He wanted more, respect, control, and a name that carried weight. By the late 80s, he'd found that lane through hustle and creativity. With two close friends, including Buckanell, he launched a party promotion company called Butt Naked, a name the Bronx still remembers. On paper, it was legit parties, music, and crowds that stretched around the block, but word spread fast that the business might have had other layers, maybe moving product on the low. Wolf never confirmed anything, but the whispers never stopped. Regardless of what was real, he was learning the art of balance, how to move in both worlds, the legal and the illegal, without losing control. He wasn't reckless, he was calculated. He understood the code, loyalty, silence, and discipline. He wasn't out there chasing chaos, he was studying power. That discipline would be tested hard. A clash with a rival crew turned violent in the early 90s and landed Wolf behind bars on an attempted murder charge. Prison changed him forever. Behind those walls, he didn't waste time. He studied people, who led, who followed, who cracked under pressure. He learned how power really moved, not in noise, but in silence. By the time Wolf walked out of prison in 1993, he wasn't the same man. He came home sharper, more focused, and ready for something bigger. Destiny was already waiting. Because that same year, another young hustler with giant dreams, Sean Diddy Combs, was breaking away from Uptown Records to build his own empire. Two men from different worlds, both fearless, both hungry, and when they met, history started writing itself. When Wolf Jones walked out of prison in 1993, the Bronx couldn't recognize him anymore. He wasn't just tougher, he was sharper, colder, more aware. He'd learned that power wasn't about how loud you could be, it was about control. Around that same time, a young music executive named Sean Diddy Combs had just split from Uptown Records and was preparing to launch his own label, something the world would soon know as Bad Boy Records. The timing was perfect. Wolf was looking for a new lane, and Diddy was looking for someone he could trust with his life. The two men already shared history, mutual friends, shared neighborhoods, similar ambition. Their bond wasn't about business at first, it was about loyalty and survival. They both came from a world where trust was everything, and once it was broken, it was gone for good. Wolf didn't just show up to be part of Diddy's circle, he helped build it. When Diddy needed backing to get Bad Boy off the ground, Wolf stepped up. He wasn't just security, he was an investor, dropping close to $300,000 into the label's early growth alongside a few close associates. That money wasn't pocket change, it was faith in Diddy's dream. Those funds helped push early stars like Craig Mack and the notorious B.I.G. into the spotlight. Without that investment, Bad Boy might never have risen as fast as it did. As the label exploded, so did Wolf's influence. He quickly went from Diddy's friend to head of security, the man who stood in the middle of every storm. From bar fights to business meetings, from music video sets to tense street encounters. People called him the Shield, because no matter what chaos was coming, Wolf was the first and last line of defense. But here's what made him different. He wasn't just protecting Diddy physically, he was protecting the brand spiritually. Wolf was the quiet voice in the back saying, "Move smart," when others screamed, "Move fast." He connected Bad Boy with real street figures, including Demetrius Big Meech, Flannery, and the Black Mafia family. Those connections stretched beyond music. They gave the label a level of protection and influence few others could match. Wolf was the glue between two worlds. The glossy boardrooms of the music business and the unpredictable streets of Atlanta, New York, and Detroit. He knew how to speak both languages, how to handle executives in suits and soldiers on the block. Diddy trusted him completely. Wolf was always by his side, always watching, always ready. But in a world that fast, peace never lasts forever. By the late 90s, the cracks started to show. Success brings pressure, and pressure exposes weakness. Inside Bad Boy, tension grew. Artists wanted more, enemies circled closer, and fame started clouding judgment. Then came the 1999 nightclub shooting involving Shine, Diddy, and Jennifer Lopez, the scandal that rocked hip-hop. Wolf watched it all unfold, standing behind the scenes while the company took blow after blow. And when Diddy refused to cover Shine's legal fees, Wolf felt something shift. To him, that wasn't just a business move. It was a betrayal of loyalty, the same loyalty they once built their empire on. From that moment, trust between Wolf and Diddy started to fade. What had once been unbreakable now had hairline cracks. Wolf still stood guard, still kept his composure, but deep down, he was questioning everything. The man who once risked his life to protect his brother now wondered if that loyalty still meant the same thing. And those doubts, combined with millions in play and pride on the line, were setting the stage for an explosion no one could stop. By the early 2000s, the shine that once covered Bad Boy Records was starting to fade. The empire was still powerful, but inside, things were getting tense. Behind the million-dollar hits and flashing lights, there were cracks, real ones. And right in the middle of that storm stood Wolf Jones, the man who'd once protected Diddy with his life, now feeling like he'd been pushed to the side. It all came down to one thing: money and respect. Wolf had been loyal for years, putting in work, investing time and cash. $300,000 of his own money into Diddy's dream when it was nothing but an idea. That investment wasn't about greed, it was about brotherhood. Wolf believed in Diddy, believed in the mission, believed they'd rise together. But as Bad Boy grew, the energy shifted. Fame changed people, power changed priorities, and Wolf started realizing he was no longer part of the inner circle he helped build. When Shine's nightclub shooting case hit, Wolf saw things differently. Diddy had walked away free, but Shine was left behind bars, taking the fall. Wolf felt that move broke the code, the same street code he lived by. Loyalty was supposed to go both ways. When he saw Diddy refuse to cover Shine's legal bills, he started asking himself if he'd ever get the loyalty he gave. So when Wolf asked for his original $300,000 back, he expected Diddy to handle it straight, quietly, respectfully, like brothers. But instead, Diddy reportedly stalled. Meetings got delayed, phone calls went unanswered, and Wolf kept hearing the same tired excuses. Weeks turned into months, and patience turned into anger. By late 2002, the situation exploded. Wolf stormed into the Bad Boy offices, demanding what he was owed and the respect that came with it. Voices were raised, tempers flared, and witnesses later said the air was electric. Longtime bodyguard Gene Deal claimed he heard Diddy tell Wolf something cold, something like, "You're replaceable now that BMF and Big Meech are around." That hit harder than any punch ever could. Imagine giving your life to protect someone, only to be told you're disposable. That wasn't just business, it was betrayal. For Wolf, it wasn't about cash anymore, it was about principle. He lived by a code where loyalty meant everything, and Diddy's words shattered that code right in his face. From that day forward, something changed inside Wolf. He still moved like a boss, still kept his composure, but his eyes were colder. People close to him said he'd started keeping his distance, focusing on new ventures, planning his next move. He was done waiting for respect that clearly wasn't coming. But power has a way of pulling people back together, even when they're breaking apart. Behind the scenes, Wolf was still tied to the same network that once protected Diddy, the BMF circle. Some insiders whispered that his fallout with Diddy might have pushed him closer to Big Meech's world. Whether that was by choice or by fate, no one knows for sure. But what's certain is that all that tension, the anger, the money, the pride, was stacking up, ready to blow. That confrontation at the Bad Boy office wasn't just a moment of rage. It was the spark that lit the fuse. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was pressure building behind closed doors. And that pressure, the kind that comes when pride and betrayal mix, was already setting up the tragedy that would unfold in Atlanta less than a year later. By late 2002, Wolf Jones had made up his mind. He was done waiting. After years of loyalty, investment, and putting his life on the line, he was ready to cash out and carve his own lane. Bad Boy was booming. The empire he helped build was flying high. And Wolf wanted what he was owed, not as a favor, but as a man claiming his share. He'd asked Diddy repeatedly to return his $300,000 investment, but each time he got brushed off. Calls ignored, meetings postponed, promises made but never kept. To Wolf, it wasn't just about money anymore. It was about respect. He'd bled for that label, protected it when enemies circled. And now the man he once called his brother was treating him like he didn't matter. That frustration started eating away at him. People close to Wolf said you could see the change. He moved quieter, thought deeper, and started looking for independence. He wanted out from under anyone's shadow. Around that time, he started working on a major new project, a high-end Atlanta nightclub deal with NBA player John Sally's brother. This wasn't some side hustle. It was Wolf's shot at full independence, a way to step into his own power, legit and respected. But the deal fell apart before it ever opened its doors. Insiders whispered that Diddy's delays and behind-the-scenes politics caused problems with permits, partnerships, and investors. Everything crumbled. Wolf lost money, connections, and something even worse, his patience. That's when the tone between Wolf and Diddy turned icy. Conversations that once ended in laughter now ended in curses. Arguments got sharp, pride turned to poison. And by the end of 2002, things almost got physical again at the Bad Boy offices. Witnesses said Wolf stormed in, demanding to be paid, reminding Diddy who helped build his name, who stood in front of danger, and who brought him into rooms he could have never entered alone. Because truth is, Wolf was the bridge between Diddy's fame and the street power that backed it. He was the reason major figures like Big Meech and the Black Mafia family respected Bad Boy in the first place. That kind of access doesn't come cheap, and once it's broken, it can turn deadly. So when Diddy allegedly told Wolf that his time was over, that he was replaceable now that BMF was in the picture, Wolf took that as more than disrespect. He took it as a threat. Those words stayed with him, burning. Friends said Wolf became distant but determined, ready to prove he didn't need Diddy or anyone else to make moves. But here's the cold twist. The same network Wolf once helped connect Diddy to was now tangled in the same chaos that would lead to his death. Whether it was fate or setup, the timing was chilling. Not long after, Wolf found himself crossing paths with Big Meech again. This time not as allies, but as rivals. And then came Atlanta club chaos and that fateful night in Buckhead where years of tension, money, and betrayal all came crashing down in gunfire. After Wolf's death, Diddy reportedly paid for the funeral, but when Wolf's family brought up the $300,000 investment, he allegedly brushed it off, calling the claim delusional. To the outside world, business moved on. Bad Boy kept shining, hits kept coming, and Diddy's image stayed polished. But those who really knew what happened understood the truth. The empire had been built on loyalty that was now buried 6 feet deep. In hip-hop's top circles, money and power mixed with pride and silence, a dangerous recipe where one broken bond can trigger everything. And for Wolf, that bond breaking meant one thing: his time was running out, even if he didn't see it yet. After Wolf's death, the streets went quiet, but not in peace. His name started floating through every barbershop, studio, and forum. People couldn't stop asking the same thing. How could a man that important vanish from history? The deeper you looked, the darker it got. Whispers began to swirl that Wolf's connection to Diddy ran far deeper than business. Online threads claimed Wolf might have been tied to Misa Hilton, Diddy's former partner, and the mother of his first son, Justin Combs. Fans compared photos, the jawline, the eyes, the grin, and theories went wild. Nothing was ever proven, but once that rumor dropped, it changed everything. If there was even a hint of truth, the tension between Wolf and Diddy wasn't just about loyalty or money, it was family deep. And then came Suga Knight, never one to stay silent when there's drama brewing. He jumped in and hinted that Diddy might have raised a child who wasn't biologically his, a claim that lit the culture on fire. Misa Hilton had long-standing ties to both men, creating a triangle built on loyalty, protection, and secrets. Insiders said Wolf had always made her feel safe when the industry turned rough. His presence was quiet but powerful, a guard in the shadows while Diddy built his empire and controlled his image. If that rumor ever proved true, it would rewrite hip-hop history. It would tear open reputations and expose truths that powerful people had buried for decades. Maybe that's why Netflix never went near it, because once you open that door, you can't close it again. But Wolf's story wasn't only about scandal, it was about the system he helped build. He wasn't just a bodyguard, he was a strategist who knew how to move between corporate boardrooms and back alley meetings without losing his edge. That's why his name keeps showing up in the shadows of major hip-hop moments. The East Coast versus West Coast feud, the 1995 Atlanta party where Suge Knight's bodyguard Big Jake Robles was killed, the whispers that Wolf might have fired the fatal shots. Whether that's fact or legend, it sealed his reputation as more than a protector. He was power personified. For years afterward, his legend followed Diddy like a shadow. Every time controversy hit Bad Boy, Wolf's name came up again, quietly, cautiously, like a secret everyone knew, but no one dared to say out loud. And then, when Netflix finally told Diddy's story in 2025 and left Wolf completely out, that silence spoke louder than any scene could have. Because leaving him out wasn't just editing, it was erasure. It protected brands, reputations, and billion-dollar deals. Wolf's truth was too real, too dangerous, too intertwined with things that could still shake the industry today. The murder, the money, the rumors, they're all threads in a story that was never supposed to reach the mainstream. So why does it matter? Because stories like Wolf's remind us what the culture is really built on: loyalty, risk, and sacrifice. Behind every polished success story, there's someone whose name gets left off the credits, someone whose silence hides the cost of greatness. Wolf Jones was that someone. Netflix might have left his chapter on the cutting room floor, but the streets still remember. His ghost lingers in every conversation about loyalty and betrayal, about fame and power, about how far people will go to protect their empires. In the end, Wolf's story isn't just about Diddy. It's about how history gets rewritten to keep certain names clean. His life, his loyalty, and his death prove one haunting truth. Sometimes the loudest story is the one nobody dares to tell.